Hey everybody, we have a corrective and recovery exercise circuit for you today. It's lower intensity, just focuses on helping the body to recover and regenerate. So, don't think of focusing on high intensity or anything. You're just kind of helping that body to repair itself. So we're going to start with some joint mobility first, and then we're going to do some corrective stretches as well as some corrective exercises. And you can just incorporate this before you go out for maybe a walk or when you get up in the morning, or just do it as a standalone workout. So, all right, so first what we're going to do is we're just going to work on some joint mobility, and we're going to start with the ankles. So you're just going to stand up and you're just going to do some ankle circles. If you need help with balance, you can hold on to a wall or a chair. And I'm just going to demo these. I'm not going to go through and do each side, but you're just going to want to go in both directions and then switch sides. So you can also do this lying down on the floor too, if you just woke up in the morning and your body's feeling really stiff and your balance is off. So, so that's what you're going to do for your ankles. For your hips, we're going to do some hip circles. So this takes some good balance as well. So you're just going to bring that knee up and around. And with your other foot, I'm picking my focal point on the floor, so I can help to balance. With your other foot, really think about pressing that heel into the floor. So just bring that knee up, out, around, and down. And then you're going to want to switch directions. And it helps too if you really keep your abs nice and tight. Woo, can't keep my balance there. Okay, so those are your hip circles. If one hip feels a little bit tighter, go ahead and do that other side a little bit more. And then for your shoulders, just some nice simple arm circles. Just reach those arms out nice and wide. And I like to gradually get the circles a little bit bigger as you go until they're really, really big. And this actually kind of burns your shoulders a little bit, but if your shoulders are feeling really tight, go ahead and bring your arms out in front of you, and then you can switch directions. And just get some really good range of motion. Keep those elbows a little bit bent just to protect the joints, and then go back to making some smaller range of motion circles until you're back to where you started again. So those are some nice shoulder circles. Make sure not hunch the shoulders up around the ears either. Just keep those shoulders relaxed. All right, so those are just some simple things that you can do for your joints. Oh, and another one, getting your wrists too. We don't really realize how tight we get in our wrists, so just doing some flexion and extension. And I can feel that this is something that I don't do very often. You'll even feel a stretch into your fingers. And then just doing some wrist circles too, going both directions. And even just stretching them out, making a nice little fist, pulling your fist towards you, and then straightening out your fingers, pulling back, just to get a nice stretch all the way up into the forearm. Okay, so now we're going to go into our corrective exercises, and we're going to do some ankle mobilizations. First one I'll show you is up against the wall. So if you've got really stiff ankles, start a little bit closer to the wall. You're going to keep your heel down into the floor, press your knee towards the wall. The key is not letting your heel come up off the floor, so you don't want to do this, all right? And this is not meant to have a really big stretch. It's just more to get more mobility in your ankles. And then bring it out another inch or so, and then you're going to do that until you can get your foot. Your knee should be able to get at least 3 to 4 inches past your toes. And I know we always say knees not past the toes when we're exercising, but this is where we're trying to get mobility in that ankle. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it, and this is great for you girls that like to wear high heels all the time, and you have those really stiff calves, is just grabbing onto your foot, pulling towards your shin, and release. Exhale, pull, and release. All right, so that's another good way to do that. All right, and then we're going to go to some hip circles. So you're going to get in an all-fours position, abs nice and tight, wrists underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips, and then you're just going to bring those hips out around in a circle. Try to make sure that your hips are staying nice and still, so you don't want to. It's not about how high you lift and moving those hips all over. Pretend a hot cup of coffee is right there on your back and you don't want to spill it. So some of you may have a range of motion like this, and that's okay, just work with it. And then you're going to switch directions. And this really starts to burn in that hip. So that's Another good way to wake it up. And man, I just cannot remember what I have written down, so I have to keep looking at my notepad. All right, so then we're going to come up, we're going to stretch the hip flexors out. Push those toes into the floor, just lightly squeeze the glute, and then hands behind the head. You're going to exhale forward, inhale coming back, exhale push it forward, inhale coming back. So just repeat that a few times. You can bring your arms up overhead, you can do one arm, and really think of extending your arm back past your head just to bring that stretch up a little bit higher. Something else you can also do to add a little bit more rotation, what you're going to do is just a slight spinal twist to the side like this and just hold it. And you don't want to twist from your low back. Think of just twisting from your upper spine. So if you're tight less, it's going to be more here. Okay? And that can just be a static hold too. All right, so then from here, we're going to get into that all fours position, into a Spider-Man plank. You're going to bring that right foot to the outside of the right hand. Take the right arm up overhead, extend up, and then you're going to bring it through, reach to the opposite side. Inhale, exhale up. Inhale, exhale, reach through. And I really love this one because you get a really good stretch in that hip. You're helping to open up your chest, and then you're also getting some nice spinal rotation in there. So then you'll repeat that on the other side, and then you're just going to take a little break. Come back in child's pose. Let those shoulders sink down towards the floor. Inhale, coming forward to a kneeling plank. Exhale, coming back, child's pose. So I like to start with a few repetitions of this. When you come forward, think of really pulling forward with your shoulders, squeezing your lats, squeezing your abs in your butt, and then coming back, exhale. Now from here, you can come from downward dog, and then to a regular plank. Exhale back, inhale, exhale. Think of really pushing those hips up and back, heels down towards the floor. You can keep the knees bent if you need to, but what you don't want to do is really round your back. Think of flattening your back out as much as you can. All right. Okay, let's see, next on my list. Okay, the spinal rotation and extension. This is great if you have a really stiff upper back. So what you're going to do, take those knees out a little bit wider, and then you're just going to push those hips back. This is going to help to stabilize your hips. And you're going to take your elbow towards your opposite knee, and then extend up through the spine. My upper back is kind of stiff, so I really don't get as much rotation as I should, so this is obviously something that I should practice. And think of pushing the floor away with this opposite hand. Exhale, open up. And then you'll repeat that on the other side. All right, so now we're going to come back down to the floor and get those hips a little bit more active and more warmed up. So we're just going to do a sideline leg lift. And yes, kind of like the Jane Fonda workouts. But what I want you to focus on is really using those hips and not the low back. So you're going to keep your foot parallel to the floor. Think of almost leading with the heel and just coming up nice and controlled, keeping your abs tight. And if you're doing this right, you probably can't lift as high as you think you can. If you're lifting up here, what you're doing is you are moving from your low back and you're not using your hips. So think of staying in a really straight line. And if you have a wall that you want to push into, you can push your heel into that. I don't want to make black marks along the wall, so I'm not gonna do that. But I really do feel this in your hip. You should feel kind of a nice little burn right there. So don't think about how high you can lift. Think about just lifting as high as you can until you feel that nice contraction in your hip. Okay? And then the next one is going to be a clamshell. So just bring those knees forward a little bit. Make sure that top hip bone is pointing down towards the floor. Keep your heels together, and you're just going to lift that knee up as high as you can. And don't let this top hip roll back and open up, because then you're not going to feel it as much. So just lift up and coming down. Up and down. And so this is called the clamshell, but it actually feels like a crab pinching your butt if you're doing it right. So really good ones to get those deep hip muscles activated and woken up. And honestly, if you don't feel that in your hips, then there's something you're not doing right. So take your time and just really focus on the movement with that. Okay? So those are just a few simple things, a few simple corrective exercises that most people will benefit from. If you want to do a real easy circuit after that, you know, maybe doing like a set, like 10 box squats. So, sorry, okay, can you get me now? All right, so just sitting those hips back and then standing up. Sit those hips back, keep your abs nice and strong, standing up. So maybe about 12 to 15 reps here. And then you can turn it around. You could do some T push-ups or even just some T raises, just to keep it nice and light. Don't worry about intensity with this. That's not the focus here. The focus is going through your movements correctly and giving your body the break that it needs. All right? So maybe doing about 8 to 10 on each side of the T raises. And then maybe doing some stationary lunges. So you can have hands on hips, hands behind the head to do prisoner style, or arms up overhead, and focusing on just a slow controlled movement, squeezing this glute, keeping both hips forward. So don't let this hip turn out. You want to keep it forward, drive through that front heel. Okay, and then you'll switch sides about 8 to 10 reps per side with that. And then finishing off with some bent over T raises. You can sit at the edge of a chair if you need to, or you can do these face down on the floor. Just focus on squeezing those upper back muscles. And you know, that's pretty much all you need. So if you've been doing some hard workouts for a while, take some time to recover, go through this circuit. If you don't have time to do everything, just pick the ones where you feel the most challenged, because we like to focus on what we're good at. We don't like to do what we're not good at. I know I don't, but that's what we need practice on. So if you're really flexible in certain areas but you're tight in others, focus on getting those tighter areas stretched out. Focus on strengthening the weaker parts of your body, and you're just going to feel better once you get this circuit done. So give it a try. Hope you enjoy it and have a good day.